Hello. Welcome to live stream. Erin was trying to get Machka to jump, but she apparently is done. She's still concentrating. There she is. Can she do it? Is she just still preparing to jump? Can you all see the laser pointer? Welcome to live stream. Shana Tova. It is New Year, so I made some challah today. Well, I made it last night. I have to say, props to people that make challah every week. I'm not a bread person. I find that bread has too many steps where you have to wait in between and then remember what you're doing. Feel like it's not the ideal cooking environment for me. Like, I'm pretty good at the you mise en place, you get everything where it is. She's still not jumping. I still have her on the screen, by the way. I'm pretty good at the mise en place, and then you're cooking the whole time. I don't like things where there's too many steps, blah, blah, blah. What I will say about the challah, I ate a bunch of it already. Erin ate a bunch of it already, but I have about as much left as a normal sized donut. So I was originally thinking I was going to make little mini challahs, because I saw a thing to make little mini sized ones, and I was considering deep frying them. I have decided that is too much work after doing this. So this is how much we have left, which is equivalent to a donut size. I have to say, it's like the size of my hand. It is not deep fried. It does have apple cinnamon on it though. So it has apples in it and it has cinnamon sugar on the top. So it's pretty much a donut except for the frying part. I'm not going to pretend it's enough of a donut that I'm going to put it in the donut log. The other reason I didn't do a donut today is because the donut shop is, they do their new flavors for 2 months during the summer. If you are a longtime viewer, you will know that what ends up happening is I end up having to do double. Now she's going crazy. She's not going to do it anymore. Oh, wait, hold on. Now she's just going to sit again. I like how every time there we go. There's a jump, even out of the camera frame. But they do that in the winter to encourage people to come more often, because they're always more busy when they launch the new seasonal flavors, and they're slower during the winter. So I will end up having to do double donuts in the winter. Well, in the summer, it's sort of the opposite situation, which is it turns out that if I don't eat the donuts that I know I won't like the really chocolatey ones, I usually end up with a week or two where I don't have any new donut flavors that I haven't done before. So I just decided none today. Yeah, there's a lot of very interesting challah flavors that I found on the internet. Erin and I were contemplating this recipe was from early 2020, so I don't think it was AI generated, but Erin and I were contemplating if it was AI generated because it called for 4 cups of apples, and there was, I just listened to it because I'm not a baker. So I tend to just listen to baking recipes because I also in cooking, especially if you know what you're doing, generally you know what you can sub for other things, and there's some level of instinct of what you can leave out or switch up. In baking, if you don't know what you're doing and you swap something out, it might screw up the whole science of the baking. So I followed it and I chopped 4 cups of apples, and I was like, this looks like way too many apples. There was no scenario in which you could put 4 cups of apples in this single challah. So I think that maybe their apple, and these weren't even big apples, but also it was 4 cups. It wasn't even I could understand it more if it was 4 apples and then my apples were way larger. But this was not 4 apples. So baking recipes are unforgivable. There's just so many rules about baking. I think I'm just not I think I don't have the disposition to be a baker. I think this is what I've started to learn. I used to work in a bakery, and I'm okay with something that's routinized and efficient. The thing about working in like a commercial bakery is that you come in and the steps are all set up and someone has done the steps that need to be done before, and it's like very clearly demonstrated. But the doing it in my own kitchen that is not optimized for baking and not being used to it, I don't know. Yes, 3 cups of flour and 4 cups of apples. Eric says 4 cups of apples is a total AI hallucination unless it's pie filling. Same. But here's the thing is nothing about the rest of the website seemed AI generated. And I also, it was from early 2020, and I don't think there were a lot of AI recipe websites in early 2020. Fuzzbubble says, my mom makes crazy substitution and then is confused about why it doesn't taste good. The thing that's funny to me is that, I am pretty good at any given time telling you what to substitute for eggs in any recipe, including baking. If you tell me the recipe, I can usually tell you how to substitute eggs in it. But that's just from years and years of being vegan, and whenever I need a recipe, now there's so many recipes on the internet. But it used to be that I would find a recipe in a cookbook and then I would sub stuff in. And also, for a long time, I don't think this is true anymore because it's become so mainstream, and cookbooks no longer have to be like an encyclopedia. You don't need to buy it and know everything you need to know to cook in the way that they used to be. And but it used to be that every vegan cookbook would have pages and pages devoted to all the different egg substitutions that you could do and the substitutions for other things. But that's the only thing I feel confident with the subbing out. I can tell you, if it's a muffin recipe, you can probably just do the 1 banana equals 1 egg method. You can use, powdered egg replacer. You can, I'm pretty good at that. But when it comes to everything else, I don't really know what I'm doing. Also, I am not, when I worked in a commercial bakery, we had a Hobart mixer, one of the huge Hobart mixers. And I got very used to that. And then when I stopped having them, I then didn't use a stand mixer for since I've lived in a house where we had a commercial kitchen. So it's been 18 years. And I do not know how to use the household stand mixers terribly well. She got fresh duck eggs from someone who told her they taste significantly different, and she used them in a pound cake and was upset. Pound cakes have a ton of eggs in them. I'm very surprised. Okay, well, we are supposed to talk about economics. I will also say I have my weird little planner, and next week is a new month, and I've started working on my planner for next month, but I thought it might be kind of fun to do a plan with me. It's a bit unadvertised here. But if people want to see the Laurel Denise planner that I've been using, we can do that. I also, when I had COVID, I organized all of my stickers. All this is in preparation for, it's very possible that 2 live streams from now, I'm going to be inside my new office. I'm looking over at Aaron because I'm trying to see if Aaron thinks I'm being ambitious.
We won't be living there.
But I might be in that new office. Why won't we be living there? Because you don't want to curse it? I'm just saying that we originally thought that it might be ready for your birthday last year. Do you know how many months ago that was? 10 months ago. Aaron's birthday was 10 months ago, and we really thought it might be ready for Aaron's birthday. October of last year, we thought that it might be ready by the end of December. So that's how we're doing over here. But I thought we could do a plan with me. The economics thing that we need to talk about today is that rates were decreased in the US last week. So the Fed decreased rates by a quarter point, so 0.25%. And that rate isn't, so it's down to 4% now for the Fed rate. The thing, that is not what you pay, right? So like you as an individual consumer are not going to be lent money at 4%. Corporations and, well, banks are going to be lent money from the Fed at 4%. And then that means that essentially to their best customers, people that essentially don't need to borrow money, so corporations, mostly corporations, governments, they're going to be borrowing money at a slightly higher rate than that, which is called the prime rate. And then we, as consumers, it gets to us a little higher. So likely, what we're seeing is that mortgage rates are now kind of closer to like 6% as of last week. And we are already seeing a surge of refinancing, particularly among recent buyers, because there was a while there about 2 years ago where we were seeing interest rates at 8%. And that meant it is very expensive to borrow money, right? So a lot of people saw this with their mortgages, particularly if you're like in Canada or the UK or Australia, where your mortgages are not like American mortgages. When your rates go up, most people only have a mortgage that's like 5 years in the UK, maybe 10 years in the UK, and then you have to get a new mortgage. This isn't that the mortgage would get paid off. It's just that you essentially only have a fixed rate for that period of time. And so a lot of people, there was like one of the reasons there was a cost of living crisis in the UK post-COVID, post-Brexit, was because of the way that their property market is structured in the UK, which is like almost no other property market in the world. It's just such a bizarre property market. So for Americans, a lot of Americans get 30-year mortgages. And a lot of people bought kind of in this buying fever that was happening early in COVID. And as rates were going up, there was still a lot of demand on the housing market for a while, where people were still buying. That has slowed quite a bunch as we've watched rates increase, right? So when rates are up to 8%, that just means your monthly like outgoings for a mortgage is going to be much higher. It also can, in the long term, depress asset prices, right? So we've seen some of that in the housing market, where people tend to have what in economics we call like a sunk cost fallacy, right? And a lot of people get very, very attached to a idea that they have in their head of the value of their house when they are trying to sell. Sometimes that value has nothing to do with what the market can bear. A house is not really worth anything until you have a buyer, right? Like the actual value of a house is what someone will purchase it for. And that entity could be a bank that is repossessing the house, right? Because we use property as a store of wealth in this country so much, a lot of people's finances are tied to their home value in a way that has nothing to do with the actual transaction of buying and selling a home at this point, right? Like people have home equity lines of credit. A lot of people consider essentially their home to be their retirement plan, which could be part of your retirement plan, but should not be your whole retirement plan. And that is because it means that a huge portion of your wealth is tied up in a thing that has very high transaction costs to sell. And one of the things that can affect your ability to move, to sell it, which you've seen with people that needed to move out of their house for whatever reason, they had a divorce, a layoff, they got relocated for work. Suddenly, they bought a house when everybody was working from home, and then suddenly they're needed back on a job site that is located quite far away, and they needed to sell a house. Any of these things that have happened in the past couple years, you started to see people that had bought at the top of the market, and they were not able to get back what they perceived as the value of the house based on what they had paid, because buyers just simply could not buy it with the higher rates. At the very early part of the pandemic, we were coming out of this historically long low interest rate environment that we had had in the United States. And so people were getting mortgages at 3%, at 2.75% even. And you can afford a lot more house when the borrowing costs are lower. This is true for everything, right? So we say that when the interest rates are higher, it means the price of money is higher. And the price of money sounds like one of those phrases that doesn't make any sense, but it's the cost of borrowing, right? So it's the price of money has just dropped because it is now cheaper to borrow money. What does that mean for the overall environment? Like, why should you care about interest rates, right? If you aren't looking to buy or refinance a house right now, if you are not looking to purchase something that you are going to be borrowing, why does overall interest rate environment matter to you? Well, there's this relationship between the interest rate and between the Fed rate and the inflation. And this is the balance beam that the Federal Reserve is constantly trying to go between, which is their mandate, which is full employment, which is a debated number, but full employment, the idea that like we don't have high unemployment, while also a target inflation rate. So they want to keep inflation. They don't want it totally flatlined because that usually means that people aren't buying anything at all. But their target rate is 2% for inflation. We have been well above their target rate for now several years, particularly in certain areas where there has been very high inflation. And not all of that has to do directly with the interest rates, right? So one of the reasons that they were very reluctant to lower interest rates is if you have lower interest rates, that means that you increase what is called the velocity of money. And if you think about, if we go back to the house example, right? If mortgage rates are lower, that means that they're going to be told that they can borrow more because the amount that they determine that you can pay is based on the interest rate and your own income. And so essentially they look at your monthly income and they say, hey, we've got an upper limit of what we think that you can afford in a house based on your down payment, your monthly income, and also the other costs that will be included in this mortgage. If the interest rate is high, that means you're going to spend more to service the debt. And that means your mortgage rate is going to be higher. And that means it's going to drive down the total amount that they will lend you. So you think about this very practically. Even if interest rates are low, that means that people with a lower overall salary, with a lower overall down payment, are able to purchase more house. And that was part of why that was one of many, many factors. I'm not going to try to say that this is the only factor in why we saw home prices explode so much during the pandemic, but the low interest rate environment that we had at the very beginning of COVID was one of the reasons people were buying houses like they were going out of style. I mean, there were a bunch of like societal factors where people realized they needed more space or they wanted a yard. Also, there was like nowhere else to spend money. So people had amassed more in savings. And so they were like, okay, let's go buy houses. And that is the speed of money. If people are out there spending money, borrowing money, and they're moving it through, then that means more money is out and circulating. When more money is out and circulating, guess what happens? Inflation. That's it. The more that people spend money, and the higher the velocity of money is what economists call it, the higher the inflation gets. And inflation, this is not the only thing that impacts inflation. So one of the problems that we're seeing is we're also seeing supply side issues when it comes to inflation right now. That is one of the reasons that grocery costs have gone up so much this year alone. Like groceries we saw a lot of we saw lumber have crazy supply chain issues during COVID, and we saw the price of lumber spike. But then when borders started to reopen and mills started to reopen, the price of lumber kind of stabilized. Now what we're seeing is an artificial slowing of the imports that we can get and a higher cost of doing business on the import side. So we're seeing that for all of the goods that the United States imports because of tariffs. We're also seeing high uncertainty. And high uncertainty means that businesses are, because we're so confused about, are the tariffs on, are they off, how much are they less, are they more, it means that businesses are not purchasing as much things to supply consumers as they would be otherwise. You're not going to put in a massive order for coffee if you don't know if that coffee is going to be 3 times the price, is going to have to be 3 times the price when you finally import it, right? Because you put in your coffee sales like a year and a half early when you sign your contract as a big importer. So we've got this lower supply, which is driving up prices, right? So that's one of the factors that's influencing inflation. And one of the reasons the Fed has been extremely reluctant to lower interest rates was because they do not have inflation at that target of 2% yet. So it's, one of the things that we definitely are there is an influence from, this is the economy, right? The greater macro economy is a very complicated beast. But in the end, you always come back to, when it comes to macroeconomics, these two things, which is interest rates and the inflation rate. They kind of move like a teeter-totter generally. So if we're so concerned about inflation, why is the Fed deciding to lower interest rates? There's a combination of factors going on here. One of them is the current administration. Trump is very pro low interest rates, which you would expect from a businessman who has been primarily in leveraged real estate, right? He understands that it costs less for him to do business, and he can do more business when he can borrow money cheaper, when the cost of money is cheaper. Because he's not buying most of his developments in cash, right? There is various banking going on. He's a great example. Well, him personally, maybe not because of the amount of bankruptcies that he's had, but a business like that's like a large scale real estate developer like Trump. Trump's businesses are an example of a business that might get the prime rate when they are doing the borrowing. They also can issue government debt, can issue corporate debt, bonds. I'm not going to get too much into the bonds because I feel like that's like another factor. And for most people, bonds are a little bit more of an abstraction to your daily life than these interest rates. These levers shift so many factors so quickly. Yeah, that's exactly like what Giovanni is saying. It's interesting that the mortgage rate dropped so quickly after the prime rate change. That's the thing, is this is one of the levers that can have a really significant impact on various kind of macroeconomic things immediately. One thing you'll also see is probably your high yield savings accounts. Your interest rate dropped right on Friday when they made this announcement. So you immediately will be in the situation of probably getting less off of savings that you're parking, right? So I don't know if you remember, in the historically low interest rate environment we were in for a long time, but it was very hard to convince people to just hold money in cash, because they were even before we started to have high inflation, even when inflation was reasonably low. For about 10 years, we had reasonably low inflation in the US, which is part of the reason that they were able to keep holding those interest rates at a lower rate. Kind of an ideal situation in a lot of ways macroeconomically, because we also had full employment. But people start to go, well, is it really worth leaving this savings in a bank account if I'm getting 30 cents of interest off of these savings? I would rather find other ways to spend that. And that's one of the reasons that increases velocity of money. And that's one of the reasons that people then decide to go out and buy houses, right? The bond market is much more important to the nation's financial stability. Absolutely. And a lot of people do hold bonds in their retirement portfolios, right? So like if you have a target date retirement fund, you will be holding some level of bonds. Bonds, essentially, whatever stocks do in response to interest rates, bonds kind of do the opposite. That's all we really need to talk about right now. Bonds come up a lot more when we're talking about government bonds, and we're talking about the impact of government bonds as the U.S. kind of gets its credit rating downgraded, which the U.S. is once again facing that right now because we might have another government shutdown in 7 days. So, which is crazy. It's like totally crazy that a government shutdown was in the West Wing in the early 2000s, like refusing to raise the debt ceiling. And they were like, this is nuts. This will never happen. This is like a totally made up scenario. And now it seems like we're just doing it like clockwork twice a year these days. So yes, the shutdown is coming. We'll see, because they're already gutting so many different federal agencies that, groceries are dang on expensive for me. The only thing that's been stable for me is milk. The big thing that I have already seen the effects of are coffee. And I feel like most of the price increases, like, my groceries went up a lot, but they went up a lot more in 2022 for me than they have in the past like 6 months. I haven't noticed as much. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that we have a CSA. So I like all through the summer, I have been eating very few imported fruits and vegetables. And the other like main thing I purchase at the grocery store is soy based. So I purchase usually soy milk and tofu, and those are both usually US productions. So I haven't seen it as much, but in the winter when our CSA is done and I start having to buy imported vegetables again, I'm going to see a lot more of it. I did have to buy maple syrup, and damn, that was expensive. And also, I kind of regret buying it because it turned out I'm not going to regret it too much because it's like a pantry staple that's like good to have around. And I'm glad I don't have to like run out and get it next time I want it. We had this tiny bottle that lasted us forever because you don't use maple syrup that often. But I bought it without looking at how much was in the recipe. And then there was a teaspoon in the recipe. So I bought like a full thing of maple syrup for like $15. And I used 1 teaspoon of it. And I was like, I could have used agave. I have agave. Aaron says, I made so many frozen soups from the CSA veggies, but we'll be eating CSA veggies all winter. That is true. But we will probably at some point have to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. So, okay. So I had one thought that I didn't fully complete there, which is like, why is the Fed lowering interest rates if it's going to possibly cause more inflation and they haven't hit their inflation target? And the answer is the job market. The job market is like very, very screwed up right now. There's some like greater problems going on with the job market that are like AI related, which is that like everybody is using ChatGPT to write their resumes and to apply to jobs. And then all HR is using AI to read resumes, but nobody is actually getting hired. Like the job market is like screwed up out there. But we are seeing a lot of larger companies do layoffs because of the very uncertain environment that's happening right now with the tariffs being on and off and all of the like impacts. The other thing that is weird about the job market right now is that we've had some very bad jobs numbers, and they've come out essentially every month. And a couple times the jobs numbers have been revised upward. So some of that has to do with like the mass layoffs that are happening in the government sector. Like those are showing up, like the layoffs, the people choosing the fork in the road, all the reduction in force that's happening in the federal government. Like federal government is a large employer. The other things that are happening is like nobody is interested in hiring when there is so much uncertainty about what is happening with federal policy, with tariffs. If you're in a business that is reliant on imports in any way or is reliant on exports, really, like if you're in a business that does any kind of like international trade or imported goods, which is a ton of businesses, very few businesses are fully United States like supply chain integrated anymore. Even your like mom and pop corner store, like a ton of the stuff that they sell at your like corner bodega is, you would not think of that as like an international trade business, but they are importing, a lot of that stuff is imported foods, right? Imported like cleaning products, imported tchotchkes, like a ton of the stuff gets made abroad. And a lot of it gets made in China, which is like the country that we keep having a trade war with, that like is willing to go tit for tat with us. And that is leading to a lot of uncertainty. And so people are kind of not happy with hiring. So we are not seeing despite the fact that it's like a constantly debated number, what is full employment? And you would think full employment means 0% are people unemployed, but that is absolutely not true. The number is thought to be somewhere between like 2 and 3%. One of the reasons that you don't want to have it lower than that is that you are always going to have some people that are like in between jobs, like people that just graduated that are looking for a job, people that are re-entering the workforce after taking care of children or elderly parents. You're always going to have some friction. If you had like 0% unemployment, one, that would usually mean that you have a very static economy, and a static economy is usually not a growing economy, right? So you want people to be you want companies to be expanding and listing new jobs. The other thing is that you'll end up with people in jobs that are not well suited for them, right? So if you've got like essentially 0% unemployment, that means that you're likely not going to have the right kind of friction in the job market. That like you do see this in economies that are very much command economies where, you know, there's one centralized, like you'd see this in like kind of communist, like in the perfect communist model, right? The ideal is that you're at this 0% kind of unemployment rate, but that usually requires quite a lot of government investment in jobs that might not actually be the best suited jobs or necessarily the most efficient. But you don't want it too high because obviously we all know what it's like when unemployment is really high. If you lived through the last recession, you are absolutely aware of like that sucks. You have people that are skilled, you have people that have things to offer, but employers are not hiring, and there is long stretches of unemployment. AS asks what a CSA is. It's community supported agriculture. So it's a farm share. And I actually like the way that Eric describes this. It's veggies futures trading, but for actual vegetables and not a financial position betting on vegetables. Yes, that is essentially what it is. You usually pay up front for your farm share. So you'll pay in the winter because the way that it works is that farmers need money for seed, for like, you know, fertilizer, all of that inputs. They need it in the winter when they're not making money. They're not selling products. So the whole idea of a farm share is essentially you give them money, usually as one payment in the winter, and you then become a subscriber. And then once the growing season starts, you get a weekly share of vegetables each week. through the growing season. And the thing about one of the reasons I love CSAs is, one, it supports local farmers, which you should do. It's more resilient than relying on the ups and downs of the grocery store market. One of the downsides is that you do share some level of risk with the farmer. So I've had CSAs for decades, and we had one year where the CSA just like did not deliver. They had a bunch of stuff happen in their personal life. It's a really small farm, and we just like didn't get any vegetables. That's very unusual. It's more common that what ends up happening is that like there's like, one of our CSAs this year, they had a windstorm that knocked out their hothouse. And so they had to essentially push back the first week because they had to rebuild the hothouse in the windstorm back in February in order to redo starts. And so everything essentially just got in the ground like a week later because of that storm. So yes, cat spotted. I think she's having a snack. It sounds like, yes. She needs a snack already. The other one is totally asleep. There's this box that's like tipped up on the side, and the cats are obsessed with sleeping on it. I am a little stressed out by the amount of boxes in our house right now, but every time I get it stressed out, I just try to remind myself we're moving soon and that I need to just stop being stressed about it. Yes, Eric says sometimes there are droughts. Yeah, there's a lot of ways in which there is actually risk to this model. Usually you'll end up like overall, you will get a lot more veggies. And you usually get higher quality veggies because they're usually picked like the day before you get them, which is not true in the grocery store. And for that quality of veggies, you need to go to a farmer's market, and the farmer's market will be a lot more. Right. So there's all these other like carrying costs essentially with the farmer's market, and you're not doing the futures trading on it. We are very lucky. We have a lot of CSAs in Portland. Our growing season is pretty long in Oregon. Like technically you can grow year round here in most of the state, except at the very high elevations. But yeah, we have a very long growing season, and we just have a lot of CSAs. There is this organization that I used to do a lot of work with called That's My Farmer, and their whole way that they would try to support CSAs they would get like congregations to all support one CSA. So the idea was it would take one of the most like costly and complicated time-consuming parts about CSAs away by making it like you've already got a group of people that go to the same place every week. And so that makes it very easy to know like the place to locate the pickup. Usually churches and temples, they have like room in order to do a CSA pickup. They tend to be like empty for a good portion of the week, or at least have space available for a good portion of the week. And it's like a built-in community already. So That's My Farmer did a really good job of like pioneering this idea of going to faith communities and being like, hey, like essentially adopt a farm, like as many of you that can do the CSA share. One of the nice things about Oregon too is that our SNAP benefits, so that's like food stamps for people that don't know, but SNAP benefits can be used to purchase CSAs on certain farms, which is even cooler. So yeah. Hopefully private equity would stay away. Oh my God. I never even thought about like what would happen. I feel like you could absolutely write a dystopian novel about private equity buying community supported agriculture farms. So one of the other reasons that I like CSAs is this is true of farms that primarily sell to farmers markets as well, but it tends to support a very inclusive or a very diverse set of vegetables, because you want to grow stuff where there will be a variety for people each week. Like I don't want to subscribe to getting like 20 zucchinis and no other vegetables. You will get a lot of zucchinis like at the end of the summer. Erin has made 25 different zucchini dishes this week, as far as I could tell. And also frozen a ton of zucchini bread. I think we're going to be able to eat zucchini muffins into like January at the rate that Aaron has been making and freezing them. But the it usually is better overall for soil health to have some biodiversity in the plantings. Like, it's still agriculture, right? So like agriculture is not amazing for soil health, but it allows for greater diversity. Monoculture agriculture is very, very bad for soil health, for soil diversity, but that's how a lot of farms in America like are operating off of a monoculture model, because they grow corn and there's one buyer, and that corn all goes into the same, you know, centralized tower in town, or they buy soybeans. And so you get a lot more monoculture crops, which is very bad overall it's bad for wildlife, it's bad for soil health. So yeah. Snaps, what are those? I thought the big beautiful bill put the kibosh on the SNAP program. They did not kill SNAP entirely. They have implemented work requirements, which a lot of states do already have work requirements for SNAP. But they've lowered the amount that people are going to get on SNAP. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on food banks and just generally families, but they didn't kill SNAP entirely. What is soil health if not judged by ability to grow plants? Well, in the end, that's one of the things that monoculture can do. I want to say I'm an economist. I did used to work on a farm, but I am not a farmer. I was like a day worker on a farm. The thing about soil health is like it affects microorganisms, and one of the problems that can happen with long-term monoculture is that it depletes soil health to the point where you need to rely on inputs. So that's part of the reason that we have so many corporations that essentially produce all of this heavy fertilizer and pesticides and the seed that you need to produce monoculture, because essentially nothing else can grow on that land because it's been leached of the same nutrients over and over and over again. And so one of the things is that it then can't grow more of the monoculture crop. This is why, you know, indigenous, like in the part of the country where you used to grow, where now it's almost all like soybeans and corn, the indigenous method of growing would be to grow the three sisters. So you would grow in the same thing. What is it? It would be squash, maize, and then climbing beans. And you get vertical stacking. So you'd get the climbing beans and the corn, and then the squash would grow up it. They each sort of balance each other at the same time, and it's much better for the, and then essentially the squash shade the ground, which keeps the soil moist, which the corn needs. So the Three Sisters is like a indigenous like agricultural practice that is much better long-term for soil health than monoculture is. Okay, I have to say, I know a lot more about economics than I do about soil health, so we might have... Zucchini season is a force of nature. It's very true. Just did a quick Google for FI, $600 for the 25-26 season. What is FI? I'm confused. I don't know what this is. And with depletion, the topsoil will blow away in the wind, and then you get a hard pan underneath that cannot grow anything. Yeah, that's like one of the things about having a ground cover. Great. Surface level explanation, but soil level, ground level. Y'all, do we want to do a little planner time? Do we want to eat some challah? I don't know if I should rate my own challah. Wait, is $600 for a CSA or is $600 for SNAP benefits? Because if $600 for a year of SNAP benefits is the max now, that would be very, very sad. But yeah, that's about, we pay like $450 for the season, which is pretty normal. But you guys have a really long growing season. I know. I was also wondering what that is. Yeah. One of the things for us too is like you need to make sure that the pickups work for you. Some of them do deliveries, but the ones that do deliveries are usually more expensive. I wouldn't know. The Florida growing season, though, was really long. It might be year round, I would say. Should we do some planning? There's the challah. I do think that if I was going to do this again, I need to get better at the fluffiness on the inside. I just think I don't have the patience for bread. Maybe I should challenge myself to try to have the patience for bread. I don't think Aaron is listening right now. I think Aaron is making music. What's your rating for the challah?
As a donut?
Maybe just your general rating. I'm going to say 3 out of 5. Yeah. Aaron says also 3. You just are doing that because you like me. I feel like if you bought this. If you can edit video, you can do bread too. Well, can I edit video? That's a very good question. I'm watching a lot of videos about how to make videos, so I'm halfway there. Nobody is excited about planners. We don't have to do any planners. I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. It's 3 out of 5 donuts though, which I don't feel like is fair. It's as much of a donut as some of the donuts at the donut shop. AS is the only one voting for a planner. Planner, sticker, washi. Do you guys want to see my organizing of my stickers really quick before we start doing the planner? Okay. I think I can get this out. I want this to be a like wooden recipe box, but it was really hard to find one that was like the right size. But here, I'll show you on the main camera really quick what this looks like. This is a shoebox that looks like a birthday cake. And I organized it. This is what I did when I had COVID. Because I could do this in the house. So I've just been sticky noting the tabs here. I really struggled to find a box that was like the right size for this. This looks like a GTD folder collection, except that it's like fitness, Halloween, travel, podcast. So my eventual dream is I'm actually going to have Aaron laser cut out of really thin wood little file folder organizers for me, and then we're gonna like burn the names in them. That's not the highest priority project we have going on right now, but that's like an eventual plan. But I had this before, and this is a little better now. And then these are all of the like big happy planner books. A lot of these are like almost done. And then I have an insane amount of, this is all sticky notes, guys. Nobody should own this many sticky notes. I don't know how this happened. It just slowly happened. So this is all sticky notes, the whole back part. But what is GTD? It's Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's a productivity system. I would say it's the first like viral internet productivity system. Like if you go back to like 2001, maybe, it's like the way bullet journaling is now. It is a cult. It is absolutely a cult. So in the Getting Things Done system, there's 43 folders. So you have a folder 1 through 31, and then you have monthly folders for each of the months. And you essentially use it as a file. So you will, like, every day, you'll essentially open up that day's thing, and it will have whatever you need to act on. Bills, whatever that you need to act on for that day. Birthday cards that you need to send. And then at the end of each month, you will open the next month's like file folder, and then you'll separate it out 1 through 31, the things in there. So like you wouldn't necessarily always put like the birthday card on that person's birthday. You might put it like a couple days earlier so that you could send it. Oh yeah, 12-week year is totally another kind of viral productivity system. Now Getting Things Done is totally still, GTD is still totally a system that people use. A lot of people used to use OmniFocus, and I think there's now a lot of them use Evernote. But now a lot of them have moved into Notion or Airtable, the GTD people. I think GTD was like predominantly tech people, mainly like men of a certain age, I would say, were the GTD people. But I think that book went like mega platinum, whatever a book could be, because David Allen wrote the book Getting Things Done. I love cute sticky notes, but I have to stop myself from buying any non-Post-it note branded ones. That might be true. I love the ones that are like the super sticky Post-it note kind that are sticky the whole thing. And those are the only kind that stick to like textured rental walls, I've found. Because one of the things I found with even like the regular Post-it note brands. Anyway, so this is the organization. Guthrie, hello, welcome. We were talking about interest rates. I just want you to know that we were talking about interest rates, and this was an economics themed show, but then everybody said that it was okay if I just brought out my planner. So now we're talking about planners. Should we actually go through the planner? I don't know if anybody wants to actually go through that, but now you can see how organized these all are. Eventually what I want to get is a giant wooden recipe box for all of these that they could actually like close and fit in, so that it'll fit with my like wood vintage new office situation. Great to see you though, Guthrie. There are not 43 though folders in mine, but I do see why people like that. Okay. Should we zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little better? Okay. This is the planner that I've been using now since the beginning of August. The new next year's versions are coming out in October 1st. I think they're announcing them. And I think this is what I'm going to use next year. And it's so crazy to me that I am using this because I usually hate coil bound ones, but it's just so unique where you get the little weekly pages. This is the mini version because I was very concerned about the size for their larger one. But it's pretty cool. The thing is with the larger one, there is like a vertical column, which then you could have like the same categories like kind of across and then each of the days. The way I have been using this is I've been putting my meals on the side on sticky notes and kind of like moving them around. And then it has a little tracker there. And I've been using sticky notes as my, where I put my like features. So actually this is a great example. I will be doing the EAS story on Friday. So it'll be due there. And then I've been using these long ones on the monthly notes. I don't know. It's not like a perfect system, but I have been really liking it. This is next month's. Because I organized my stickers, I decided I was going to try to use up some of my awkwardly sized stickers. One of the downsides of this calendar is that it's like so compact and efficient with the months and the days that I have been struggling a little bit with like, I have so many stickers and I can't, there's not a ton of space for them because it's so like tiny and efficient. And I'm like, should I have a planner that's bigger just so that I have more spots for stickers? Which I was like, is that really the point? So this has been roughly how I've been using it. I also have been putting things that I want to be aware of, but I'm not committing to on sticky notes. I've been using a lot more sticky notes than I usually do in this planner. Okay, so I do know that I have an interview that is totally scheduled. What is the name of the author? I'm looking for the book that I know I need to. Okay, it's Noise Cat is his last name. I need to finish this book before then, so I need to put finish book, QA, and then probably final edit, EAS. Those calendar squares are postage stamp size. Yes, they're really small, and that's because I have the mini version. I can only use like a 0.2 or 0.3 in this. I did use it as an excuse to buy some of my pens in slightly smaller because I usually use 0.5. But even the 0.5 feels kind of big in this. Okay, finish book UA, final edit EAS, questions. Noise Cat, NPR training, voice tracking, finish. What am I doing? Okay, finish. Table. And then schedule B&B craft night. I am going to possibly take off this day because Halloween is on a Friday this year. So I have breakfast on the bridges in the morning, but we kind of want to host a party, but I also feel like maybe we should not do that because we have a lot going on, but it would be very fun to host a Halloween party because Halloween hasn't been on a Friday since 2014. So I don't know, could be very fun. I have to leave in a little bit. So how about people tell me what they are looking forward to this week? What are you looking forward to the coming week? Um, and 5 to 10 host. And then I'm just going to do workouts on this side. I've been going to the 10:30 mobility class on Mondays, and then it gives me more time to do stuff in the morning before I go skating. Okay, then then I think I'm just going to book all these right now. I'm trying to get back my mayorship at the yoga studio because I was out of town and then I had COVID. So I totally have totally lost my mayorship, and it's probably going to take a while for me to get it back, I would say. Okay. Start costume. Mayorship, like back on Foursquare. Yeah, I mean, it's called Swarm now because they like integrated the apps. But yes, I do still. It's just me and like one person that competes for mayorship at my yoga studio, but I do care. That's also how I keep track of my streaks. I actually just checked in at my main ice rink for the 600th time today. So, you know. Okay, skate class. And what am I doing? I'm doing the Friday reservation. Very fun. I like that part. Wait, AI says you're looking forward to your kitten finishing her deworming medication. There's a live idea, the economics of cat/pets. I feel like that's more finance than economics. But I do think it could be interesting. I actually have been thinking for a long time that it would be fascinating to talk about pet insurance in the context of understanding American health insurance system, because pet insurance is kind of it's very similar to how American health insurance started out before it turned into this like behemoth that it is now. And so I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk about like all the ways in which pet insurance will likely go wrong, especially as veterinary clinics get more and more bought up by private equity. And like there's a ton of consolidation in it. Do we need to do slightly more decorations? Oh, also, we do have to do this one is gonna have to be the to-do list for October, right? Because it does cover up, it slightly covers up my pumpkin spice one, but we're definitely gonna have to do this to-do list as my, which means that I can only have this many things on my monthly to-do list, which does sound like a bit of a challenge. All right. What do we say? Do we do our tiny ghosty mail ones? There we go. Look how cute that is. This is not a post-it note. This is actually just a thing. So I have to make it a post-it note, but luckily I have an insane amount of washi tape to do that with. Okay, what are our top goals? So Budgetober, badges, Budgetober, lives, mail, Patreon letters, and, okay, EAS story, QA memoir, move, costume, and be on B. Oh, and then live event. I should probably not forget about the live event that I am in at the end of the month. I have another one next month, but it's like, I think the next one is not till, yeah, it's not till the 13th of November, so I've got plenty of time for that one. I would like to go to a backflip class, at least at some point during October, but man. Yeah, look at that. We've got some good Halloween themes going on in here. Do we need to add some stickers from the Halloween? There's a holiday section, and then there's a whole Halloween section in my sticker file because it gets its own section. Okay, what do we need? I think we'll do a little trick or treat on Halloween. And do I have a sticker that's like Halloween themed that's good for the live event that I'm doing? Did I say backflip class? I did say backflip class. Yeah, it's in there. My goal for this like year of my life is to learn a backflip on ice skates. So I've been intermittently taking a backflip class on land at an aerial studio, and I've done a bunch of the backflips assisted, but I need to find a way to go consistently. It's very expensive. It's like $27 a class if I buy a 10-pack, but it's like the only place I feel comfortable with teaching me to learn a backflip, because most of the places that like do backflips, like trainings, are like gymnastic studios that are targeted at children. But this aerial studio has a lot of people that are very comfortable with teaching adults, because it's not that I don't have the physical capability of doing backflip. It's like such a mental game. So that's the like big thing that I need to do. Okay, I do have all of these little like planner stickers that are Halloween themed. Look at all these. I have so many of them. Look at all the pumpkin spice stickers that I have. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's any other, like, relevant. I guess I could decorate the actual weekend with a little... I could decorate the week itself. Oh, it's just slightly too big for my weekend days, but I guess that's okay. I'm trying to use up stickers here. I'm trying to get over the fact that I'm a sticker hoarder, and it really, organizing my stickers during COVID made me be like, I cannot buy any more stickers. I am cut off until I use every single sticker that I have. Which is unrealistic because I make stickers, but we'll move on from that. Okay, I have Oh My Dollar stickers from Budgetober. I think I'm going to put one on the first Budgetober live stream. There we go. There's our Budgetober kitty. Trying to see if there's like a good conference one. I could use these little bats with laptops for hosting, but I feel like that's maybe a little excessive. This I will be using for when I need to ship stickers because it's holding a bunch of stickers. AS says, okay, Surya Bonali. Well, so then there's a whole separate thing. I'm learning it off the ice. Once I'm very comfortable with it off the ice, then I have to go to a different rink that has an overhead harness. Like, I don't know anyone in real life that can do a backflip, like, of all of the skaters that I know. But our harness that we have that we use for jumping, it spins this direction instead of this direction. So the nearest one I know for sure that has it is Sun Valley, Idaho. But I'm giving myself till next July. Like, I'm approaching this with like a reasonable timeline. I've been working on the preps on ice. It's essentially the same entrance as a Lutz. So I've just been trying to do Lutzes and toe loops as much as possible to like prep for the doing of the backflip. I think it'll be fine. Everything's fine. Okay, well, I do need to run to the union meeting in 2 minutes. How do you reconcile digital and analog? Are you fully analog on notes across all endeavors? I use the digital is where all of my like future appointments lives. Unfortunately, the digital is messier than the planner, and part of the reason I do the planner is that it's how I consolidate, because I have to have a Google Calendar and an Outlook calendar, and the Outlook calendar is a mess all the time for work. It's just like a huge mess because well, one, I hate Outlook, but so what I do is, this is my method for consolidating all of this stuff, is the act of putting this in there. So I do not use this. This is not the first place that an appointment will go. It is the second place that it will go when I'm doing the transferring. It also helps remind me about things, like I know vaguely that in November I have an event, but this like helps me remember when that actually happens. And then for to-do lists, I don't really use digital to-do lists very much. I mainly use written to-do lists. Well, y'all, I hope you have a lovely week. I hope your kitten is done with deworming and you no longer have to fight your kitten for it. What else are people looking forward to? People didn't tell me what they were looking forward to. Yeah, I don't know what else. And shana tova, everybody. And may you have a sweet new year. And until next week, same time, same place next week. Until next week, stay safe, stay hydrated, pet a cat if you have one available, and I will see you all soon. Bye.